This conference will now be recorded.
How is everybody today?
Good,
Doing
thank you.
well.
Going
All
great,
right.
David.
How you doing, Dave?
Hanging in there.
Hanging in there.
We had a bunch of snow.
Yeah, it was fun to look at. I'm
Yeah.
glad it's gone.
Yeah, I am too.
I did not enjoy driving to the airport at 4 o'clock this morning in it, though.
Oh, Lord, have mercy. Driving to the airport at 4?
Yeah, I had a 6 o'clock flight. It was fine before there was snow, you know. So
Uh,
Happy New Year.
Same there.
Yeah.
So where are you, Julie?
I am in the bustling town of Wichita, Kansas.
Woohoo!
And I'm having fun with you guys tonight.
There
Yeah,
you go.
I'm from not too far south of there, a place called Enid, Oklahoma. So just
Oh, I
down
know
the
it.
road, down
Very good.
I-35.
One, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, good. The camera's working.
How you doing, Mr. Gary?
Pretty good, David. How's the shoulder going?
Doing good. Getting stronger. It's taking a while.
That's a good thing.
Missing anybody? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Who am I missing? Mr. Charles.
Hi, Liz.
Boy, is Charles joining us tonight?
I have not heard anything to the contrary, sir, but as you know, he's got a bad internet connection at home and his technology skills are a little bit limited. So
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Brown. Well, it's 7 o'clock and a very special evening for a special Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of the City of Lago Vista. Want to welcome all of you attending and just let you know that if there's any citizen comments for any non-agenda items, in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, the commission's prohibited from acting or discussing other than factual responses to any specific questions, any item not on the agenda. So is there any citizen comments at this time? Well, if that's the case, then we will move along and kind of call the roll. I don't see Charles, and I believe that it was said Charles may not be or might not join us. So we do have Richard Brown, and we do have Larry Hagler, and Tom Monahan, our vice chair, and I'm Gary Zaleski, and I'd like to offer a warm welcome to our two newest members, Julie Davis and Don Jandro. So welcome to the club. And
nothing better than being kind of meeting like this.
yeah, well, I hope that you've already given Mr. Jambor your account number so that he can deposit your pay directly into your account.
Check balance.
Again?
I was like, mine already went through. I got it extra early.
Oh, good, good. Well, welcome to the new members. And one of the things this evening that's on the agenda, item number 2, is the election of officers. And I would like at this time to go ahead and kind of change the agenda just a little bit in that tonight, if you would like to make recommendations for nominations of the chair and the vice chair, so that the new members and others could have time to contemplate, and perhaps on Thursday, we will have the actual election. So if anybody would like to put forth any nominations, they could certainly do that at this time.
I would like to nominate our distinguished chairman to lead this fine group for one more year.
All right.
I would second that motion. I think that's a good idea. Unless one of the two of you is responsible for scheduling this meeting in conflict with the football game, in which case I'd like to know that before I vote.
Let me change that to Richard.
Well, for our director of development, there will be no celebrating in Toomer's corner tonight. So sorry, Roy. Tough year. There's one nomination. Is there any other nominations you would like to put forward besides the nomination for the chair, possibly one for the vice chair?
Oh, I thought Tom had just nominated himself as part of a package. I thought, in that case, Tom having failed that, I would like to nominate Tom. I feel as though he's done a fine job, and I think that you guys make a good ticket. Are we going to vote as a ticket?
No, we're not going to vote this evening. We will contemplate the nominations and see if anybody wants to accept the nomination and go for the vote on Thursday during our regular scheduled meeting.
Okay.
And I'd like to add that Charles Solomon has joined us. Good evening, Charles.
Charles, turn on your mic and say hi. Oh, well, never mind.
Never mind. All right, then. David, thank you very much for joining us, our council liaison, David Williams. David, they have you listed in this agenda as comments. Would you want to make comments now or at the end, or at both?
I would rather make them now.
Well, go right ahead, David.
One, I want to thank Tom Monahan and Richard Brown for continuing to serve on this commission. I also want to mention that both Julie and Don have both served on the Economic Development Committee with me. And I thought this would be a good way for them to move up and to gain more knowledge about our city. Julie has a wealth of knowledge. Her experiences in managing franchise sales from all the big players you would know of, International Dairy Queen, El Polo, Popeyes, Dunkin' Donuts. So she's dealt with a lot of different franchisees and owners of different businesses. And Don is a real estate agent and has here in Largo. And I thought this would be a good opportunity for him to understand the zoning end of the business and to be able to he'll be able to catch on quickly. And I thought they would be good for the commission. And Mr. Richard Brown, you now have a female that's on the commission with you.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome, sir. So that's all I have to say. Look forward to working with you this year and keep moving on.
Thank you, David. And if you'd like to pass on some words of wisdom at the end of the this evening's meeting, be more than happy to have you jump in. All right, thank you very much. And moving on to item number 4, the public hearing and action. Number 4, 20-1740-PR-PLA, consideration of a preliminary plat approval in accordance with section 2.16 of chapter 10 for phase 1A of Firefly Cove, being approximately 12.137 acres of a part of the W.A. Cook Survey abstract number 2605 and commonly referred to as being located at 19517 Boggy Ford Road. And Roy, if you would take us through the presentation.
Yes, sir. And I guess primarily for the benefit of our new members who were unable to observe the approval of the Planned Development District. This was part of an existing much larger Planned Development District that included multifamily, a number of single-family residential, commercial enterprises, and the like. It was never developed, sat there dormant for a number of years, and this developer has decided to tackle it and change it to predominantly, in fact, completely single-family residential, with the only other use being the amenity center for those single-family lots. One of the primary concerns, of course, was access to Boggy Ford Road. We wanted them to do a very detailed traffic impact analysis and very carefully study exactly how the property would be accessed. So in the interim, the staff kind of pushed them into limiting the first phase to this small number of lots and using this particular location because of their ability to improve Draper's Cove Road only and defer all the improvements that we knew would be necessary to Boggy Ford Road when the other entries were developed. So what you have in front of you today is simply a repeat of what the rest of you have already seen in the Planned Development District approval. It's the preliminary plat, which will allow them to go ahead and start constructing the improvements and start to sell lots and start building them. But once again, only these first 20 lots.
Thank you, Roy. Are there any of the commissioners that have questions of the staff at this point?
Roy, I just called up the packet so I could be looking at it online. while we're meeting. It looks like something got transposed. The cover page says January 14th. Well, let me see. I guess I clicked on the wrong link. Never mind. Let me see.
Yeah, this one's the one down below that.
Yeah, that's
They're
what
in
I did.
reverse chronological order.
Never mind.
Mr. Chairman, may I withdraw my nomination of Mr. Monahan for? Mr. Jambor, I have a question about this project. The developer seems to have purchased a single-family residence across the street from the very near the Draper Cove, Draper something exit onto Boggy Ford Road. And they have a sales sign out in front of it saying that that'll be their sales office.
Yes, sir.
I do not recall that having come before us for a special use permit. Is that in the city?
There is a permitting process, and it does not require special approval. What did require special approval had to do with the inclusion of a sign, which those model homes are allowed to include. It's just that the sign ordinance is a little ambiguous, so we asked them to seek a variance to validate it the same way we have other model home sign permits. There's a bit of an ambiguity in the ordinance. Just to be safe, we asked them all to get that approval. But no, there's a model home permit ordinance in the ordinance where you just permit it.
Oh, yes, there is. Yes, there is. Okay.
Will that suffice, Dr. Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you still want to withdraw that nomination, or?
No.
Oh, okay.
Tom's a good man. He's done a good job.
Oh, okay. All right. All right, then. Any other questions that any of the commissioners may have of the staff at this point? If not, I'd like to ask for the applicant presentation.
Good evening. How are you? My name is Dirk Gazda, and I'm sorry to join a meeting that where two members are feuding already, but we'll try to make up for that. I'll be short and sweet, as I've done in our previous meeting. I think the previous time I came before the Planning and Zoning Commission, Roy has a great package. He and his team put us through the grinder again and again. I think they like doing that. But anyway, he came out with a pretty good package. I have nothing to add to what he said before. I think this is probably old news to some of you, since it's the preliminary plat mirrors exactly the 20 lots that were already approved on the site plan. And so to save you some time, I'll yield my time back to you, and I'm here for any questions or anything I can do for you. Thank you.
Guys, do you think for the benefit of our new members, you give like the 30,000 foot description of what's going on here? Or?
Certainly. I guess for the new members, since it is a 281 acre site, and ultimately we scaled it back, but scaled it back as around 300 units. And as Mr. Jambor said, we have taken out the retail and the RV and the commercial uses, and then there were also places for apartments or attached units. So the site we're going to be around a while. You might ask who we are. The entity is called Firefly Cove LLC, but one of the members of that entity is the landowner, and they've owned this since 2007. And fortunately, they invested in it, and like a lot of things in 2006 and 7 and 8, they ended up buying all the other members out, and they've held the land. It is a beautiful piece of property with probably, I think if you look at the, I don't have it with me, and I couldn't put it up anyway. But if you look at the PDD that existed, we've scaled back a lot of that by simply pulling the units, pulling big estate lots out of the heavier topo and bringing it all into the flatter areas of the project. One of those is the southwest corner of, or the northeast corner of Draper's Cove and Boggy. The other is all that fronts along Boggy. I passed it is between Loman and Draper's, across from the new convenience store. Everything on the south side belongs to our entity. And then there's some further land down Draper's Cove, about halfway down the property. So in the end, we've kind of retreated some of the development out of a good portion of the site. We'll end up with at least a third of it being open space. And while I understand that can often be trash, I think it's currently got existing paths and roads cut into it so you can enjoy it. And we plan on making trails out of that, excuse me, that connect to the streets. And so that people can walk down to the water on the trails instead of walking down Draper's Cove. I'm with a company called Sunrise, and rather than go on about them, it's www.sunriseco.com. Been around 50 years, I myself have done different projects all over the Southwest. Some of you might notice or might know of Royal Oaks Country Club in Houston, Texas. I was very involved in that, and I'm a Cougar, and went to Houston. So around here, I was president of Brookfield here in Austin for not last year, but the prior 5 years, and did 2 very large projects. One was called Kissing Tree down in San Marcos. It is an active adult community, 55 plus, about 2,500 units, with a full golf course and a wide range of amenities. And I'm now 64, and so if any of you are hanging around my rim, you might go down and check it out. It's a pretty neat place. Spent a lot of time having fun. I also did a property in Easton Park, which was about 2,500 acres, but about 12,000 units. It's in the city of Austin, right next to, right on 183 between William Cannon and Slaughter. And they are selling they'll sell about 800 homes this year. So wow. That's kind of my background. And I only say that because I'm going to come back before you several more times over the next couple of years. And so those of you that have just joined the council, I thought that might be helpful. We've come out with a project that is simply keeping most of the project either smaller lots, 40, 50 feet, 60 feet wide, with, I'd say on average, we're between 40 and 50. Smaller homes that are geared toward both young families that come out here because that's close to the school. The schools are great out here. And secondly, pre-retirement or retirement. So we've got 5 floor plans in our first phase. And we have kind of 2 and 2 that fit both of those groups. So families generally tend towards more bedrooms and put the master up, and people like me would like the master on the ground level along with everything else. So that's our buyer. That's who we've geared this project for. So outside of, we will also have estate lots, about 55 of those at this point, which will have houses that are larger and more into the trees, but yet still on great lots, not dropping off the cliff. And then lastly, an amenity center, which right now our plans are to put it, we actually own 12 acres and 16 acres on the water. unfortunately, all but about 2 acres is sometimes in the water based on 2017. So we do have a bit of that down by the water, and as of today, that's where our planning is going. Our planning efforts are going to locate the amenities. It is open space on the previously approved PDD, and we retained it as common area open space on the revised PD that we've talked about previously. That amenity will be, the basic part of it will be a large cabana shade structure with picnic tables underneath, barbecue grills, a large pool with a vanishing edge, and parking, and then a long boat ramp that'll go down at least to where if you back straight out, headed south, you get about 2/3 the way into the property, and then the topo drops pretty significantly, making it too hard to launch a boat. So we do plan on putting a boat ramp so that our residents can use that to take all their toys and go down and spend the day there and play. I think that's a good summary. Any questions or anything else I could answer, I'd be happy to.
I just had a question about when the amenity center is going in. What phase are you doing that? Just out of curiosity.
So we have 3 phases. The first 20 lots were 1A, and then phase 2 is up on Boggy Ford also, and then phase 3 is farther down Drapers. I would expect to put that in right after phase 1, if that makes sense, which is about 80 homes in total. I don't mean to sound vague, except I know Roy knows real well. Drapers Cove is a private street. There are numerous residents, well, not residents of the city, there are numerous homes scattered along the lake, which this property surrounds in lots of ways, and they are on their own water system, and Drapers Cove is their only access. And so a lot of the timing on what we do is going to be based on, the construction or the improvement of Drapers Cove down there. Right now, it's a pretty good road these days and fairly wide. But we need to work through that. Those homes are in a different water CCN. And so we need to work through that with those residents, whether they are currently purchasing water from the city on a line that we installed. There's a 2-inch line that runs along Drapers Cove and goes all the way down. Simply because in the drought, the well went dry. So that's a lot of information, but in essence, we can't put the amenity in until we kind of resolve getting water down there, getting proper access down there, parking, and we'll be working on that. So hope that helps.
Mr. Brown?
Thank you. Mr. Gosda, I have not seen the entire plat. I've only had the opportunity to look at the present plat before us. Thank you, Mr. Zaleski. I can't quite see the fine details on that, but thank you. My question is, will this development have access to other streets to exit the development, enter and exit the development, other than the footprint that the present PDD shows us along Boggy Ford Road?
I'm going to do like all little politicians do and kick the can down the road, only because we have a traffic impact analysis that has just been completed. I haven't even seen the final draft yet. We have been working with the city and to do the analysis, and that's going to drive a lot of our decisions. We have seen, or I have seen, traffic counts and projections going forward, and I can tell you that I don't really want to access Boggy Ford in 3 different places. However, it's a little hard to tie it together. So I'd like to ask for a little just patience on that. We are trying to schedule a meeting with Alliance sometime next week to go over this and look at the various impacts. And the impacts change depending on our land plan. And in short, if we hook everything up together, then everything's going to come out boggy. Whereas if we really develop it in kind of 3 separate phases, I think most of the traffic is going to come out at the Draper and Boggy intersection, which is makes it much easier to control. Does that help at all?
I guess that was going to be my question as well, that the access for this phase is right there off of Draper and Boggy, where you already started the excavating, correct?
Yeah, where we cleared all the cedars out. Yes, sir.
Yes. Any?
I would just like to say that in addition to traffic impact analysis, which I'm sure you will be addressing, and I'm sure that's in good hands. There are a lot of areas in Lago Vista that are hard to get in and out of in case of an emergency. I see it going on in other developments than yours. And it's just something that concerns me. Sometime we may need to know that, but we'll find that out after the emergency, I guess.
Mr. Chairman.
By the way, I'm not being critical of your development. Do not misconstrue my comments, please. I'm only saying that a lot of the development in Lago Vista kind of gets down, little fingers going here and there, and I hope we never all have to leave at once.
Mr. Chair, do you mind if I address that a little bit?
Please go ahead, Roy.
Yes, sir. What we've talked about with the developer and their design team is preserving the opportunity for connectivity to the west. Now, this property owner can't do that unilaterally, but what we will ask him to do is preserve open spaces, if you will, so that if a neighboring property owner cooperates, we can create that connectivity going towards Continental and those kind of streets as outlets. So we're aware of that issue. I don't know that he can solve it on his own, but what we will do is ask him to preserve those opportunities.
Thank you, Roy.
Thank you, Roy.
All right. Any other questions from the commission to the applicant? All right. If not, then we're going to move on and open the public hearing at 7:29. Any comments during the public hearing? If not, it's 7:30 and we will close the public hearing. Any further discussion on the part of the commission? Yes, Tom.
I think it's just kind of a technical step here. It sounds like everything's in order with the plat, and so I don't see any reason to not approve it. Since sounds like all the work's pretty much done and in order, except for a few notations on the plat that may need correcting.
I guess with that said, I would go ahead and make a motion that item 4, item 201740 PLA, that the application is approved, but subject to the correction of the plat notes that are marked by the staff in the packet.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Yes, Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before he gets away, I have a question for Mr. Gazda, if I may go back. It's just a simple.
We've already moved on.
I know we have. I'm requesting the forbearance of the chair to just let me ask him a simple question.
All right, I'll forbear.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gazda, I noticed that in the plat that you have given us, the lot widths vary, and I wondered if that was dictated by topography or an opportunity to introduce different models that you plan to use in the development.
We being Sunrise are a little different. Sunrise is just a company I'm with. And I'm an owner in Sunrise. I'm not an employee. What we found is that if you, in a short statement, if you keep the architecture and the landscaping at a standard on every house that is good, you can mix up houses on 40-foot lots and 70-foot lots. And while most other builders buy, well, I bought a whole bunch of 60s over here or 40s over there, we'll put a 40 between a 50 and a 60. And as long as you have good architecture and consistent among all 3 products or 4 products, we found that people actually like it better, especially out here, because, you know, while small families generally buy the starter homes, retirees and pre-retirees are looking for a place to get away. And like me, I'm not looking for another big home. I'm looking for a small one. And so that allows that by that consistency.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks to all of you. Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Brown. Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion at this point? Time for a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand in front of the screen.
Aye.
Any opposed? It appears to be unanimous amongst all members.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 5 of the agenda, 20-1742-CO-U, consideration of a recommendation regarding conditional use permit application pursuant to section 17 of chapter 14 of the Lago Vista Code of Ordinance to allow for a detached garage that exceeds the maximum floor area allowed by section 6.10 at 21001 National Drive, Country Club Estates, section 10, lot 2852A. And if you would grace us with the staff presentation, Roy.
Yes, sir. This is a conditional use application on a lot that is fairly large. It was already a fairly large lot. It was combined not too terribly long time ago. It will allow the property owner the opportunity to put a garage in a less awkward place than where it is now. Apparently, from what I can gather, this house did not originally have an attached garage. So there was one that was added on the rear of the building, on the rear of the residence, and he had to have a driveway that basically circled around the entirety of the lot going behind the swimming pool in order to get into the garage. Now that he owns this property to the east, he will try and rectify that, and in the process, perhaps get the inordinate amount of impervious surface on the lot down more in a little more consistent than what our ordinance calls for. He's got that he's going to deal with at the permitting stage. The new driveway will require a variance that will be in front of the Building and Standards Commission. But this was kind of step one of the process because it's the lengthier part of the process. Yours is a recommendation that goes in front of the city council for actual approval.
Correct. Any questions that the commissioners might have of the staff?
Yes, I have a question.
All right.
Mr. Jambor, it looks like a very high percentage of the first lot owned by the applicant is already covered by concrete.
Yes, sir.
And then when you add in the new driveway and the footprint of this new building, has a calculation been done on the impervious cover of the combined lot?
Not an exact calculation. However, we made the same comment to the applicant and discussed the solutions. What this new garage will allow him to do is, it will be the primary garage. He will remove the existing paving and replace it with pavers that you mow, if you will. The kind that you've seen me use and present to you before. And that he will do that in order to get the impervious percentage down to the required 50% max.
Is that before he does whatever he's going to do out the backside of that?
Well, it'll be part of the permit. He won't get the CO until it's complete.
Okay, I know that the building has 3 doors in the front and 3 doors in the back, and it looks like he plans to add additional impervious cover behind the building after the building's built. It's not shown on the drawing, however.
No, sir. Actually, what it is, and we have the application in front of Building and Standards tomorrow. It will have a 20-foot wide driveway on the front, and that's it. The rear doors are simply for ventilation.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, but you are correct. There's
Gotcha.
this house, obviously had more impervious surface, before we had that, before it was permitted. It appears to be well in excess of the 50%. It certainly was before the lot was added.
I would like to add the comment that that'll be a very well ventilated garage once all 6 doors are open.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments or questions that the staff for the staff from any of the commissioners?
May I ask, just in standard practice, you're talking about design, and that goes forward and is approved elsewhere. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. The conditional use permits are a recommendation only. The city council is the actual approving body, like zoning applications.
Just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Arizona, just for the new members, I guess, if they're not aware, there is there was in the last legislative session, there was a law passed where municipalities can no longer specify building materials.
Right.
What we used to do, we can't.
Oh, wow.
It was 65%, if I'm not mistaken. Stone on the outside.
Yes, sir. We that ordinance still exists. We just can't enforce it.
All right. Moving right along, if there's no further questions of the staff, is the applicant available to make a presentation?
He doesn't appear to be here, sir.
I know.
I'm not sure whether that's intentional or not. As some of you may be aware, he's a former member, so he may be intentionally trying to keep his distance to avoid the appearance of conflict.
I would think it would be more advantageous to be present than not, but
It may simply be confusion about the new methods of joining online. I'm not sure which. We have been in fairly constant contact with him recently, but didn't think to bring this up to make sure he attended.
well, there is a big yellow sign in his front yard, so he probably knew that there might be a meeting this evening.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, the material on this is supposed to emulate the siding that's on his house. I don't know if it shows up very well in these images that he provided, but he does have material that indicates that.
All right.
Mr. Jambor, what is that siding? I did not know that was the case, so I did not make note of what's on his house now.
It is a yellow clapboard looking siding.
Horizontal lapping gap, horizontal.
It looks to be that, yes, sir. But I honestly don't remember whether it was horizontal or vertical, but I remember the shadow lines were very faint.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Since there's no applicant presentation, we will open the public hearing at 7:42. And are there any comments from the public regarding item number 6? I'm sorry, item number 5.
Yeah,
That's okay.
we have one comment. That garage seems awfully close to the road.
Excuse me, if you would. Could you please give your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. It is Gad Krumholz, and I live at 20807 National Drive.
Thank you. And your comment?
Yes, the comment is that just from looking at the proposed plans on the packet that was for this meeting, that garage seems awfully close to the street. There are other detached garages on this road on other houses where the garages are further back, recessed in their properties. And I don't know if that's going to look, uniform along the street, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes, sir. It's 25 feet from the property line, which in this particular case is another 25 feet from the paving of the road. So it's about 50 feet back from the paving.
Thank you, Roy.
Okay, yeah, maybe I'm just looking at this.
Yeah, the line you're seeing with the driveway, that's the property line. That's not the edge of the paving.
Okay,
so
thank you.
So it's another 25 feet, Roy?
In this particular case, now, when this survey was done, which was a year or two ago, I can't swear it hadn't been widened since then. And he draws National nice and straight and clean, and we all know it's not. So there's a certain amount of suspicion there, but not a lot.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your comments.
May I add a comment, Mr. Chairman?
During the public hearing?
Yes, sir. As part of a response to the person who just made the comment about the setback.
Go right ahead, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Sir, the proposed structure is 35 feet deep. And so with the setbacks that were described to you by the Director of Development, Mr. Jambor, if you add that to the 35-foot depth of the building, he begins to get near his rear property line as well, and he has a setback there as well. It doesn't have a lot of room to adjust that setback. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Mr. Brown. All right, any other public comments at this time? If that's the case, then we'll close the public hearing at 7:46 and move on to any further discussion regarding this application. No further discussion?
Oh, before the commission or before the public?
No, the public hearing is closed.
Oh, I have a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, this is our discussion time, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I was looking at the plat at the moment and I wasn't paying close enough attention. I apologize. Absent the presence of the I don't think that's right. The fact that the applicant is not present makes it awkward to continue the discussion and approval process, and I recommend that this application be postponed.
Was that just a discussion or was that a motion?
That was my comment and recommendation to the commission. It was not a motion.
Gotcha.
Mr. Chair, in this case, you do have the opportunity to continue it until your next meeting, which is 3 days away, and let the staff contact the applicant. I see Erin shaking her head, though.
We can't get it on the agenda. It's too
Oh,
late.
you're right. Excuse me. 72 hours is going to get me. Unless I can drag Sandra up here.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I'm 48 minutes too late for that even.
Yeah.
So,
Any further discussion?
so Richard, I'm also one who likes to see the permittee present during these meetings, particularly those with there's some questions that may impact the decision, but I guess in this case, this seems pretty straightforward to me. To me, I guess I don't know if that would, do you have any particular questions to impact our decision? Or
Well,
your
I guess the question, Tom, you're saying to Richard that if the applicant were present, what would be the question of the applicant? Is that where you're going with this?
Yes.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you want me to, I'll tell you what I could do for you, Mr. Brown. I could play Paul and you could pretend I'm Paul.
I do not find that response satisfactory, Mr. Chairman, but thank you.
Okay, I just thought I'd offer.
Well, my question for the applicant would be, actually, it's not a question. I think that building is not in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. I think it is way too big. It exceeds the calculation of 50% of the permanent residents. And I would like to see the building redesigned and or the application withdrawn.
Understood.
Fair enough.
Others to discuss?
Well,
Mr. Monahan, how do you feel about the 50% calculation being not addressed by the applicant?
well, we've had a number of those that we've approved.
But this building is much bigger than the house. And it is not at all in keeping with our ordinance. And
well, you have a serious question, so I'm willing to support you on it.
thank you, sir.
Any other discussion at this point?
I have a clarification I want to make sure, sorry. Am I understanding this correctly to be that this is 14% larger than what our ordinance allows for? Is that how this reads?
Yes, with one caveat. The ordinance mentions floor area, which it does not define, which is something I brought up in the staff report and recommended that you will be looking at an amendment to this ordinance Thursday. I added that clarification to define floor area. It is 14% bigger in accordance with the way you have defined it in previous applications, where you're talking about basically covered area. One of the reasons that's been almost a requirement, so to speak, it's because a lot of the permits or a lot of the buildings we deal with predate our permit records, and so whereas it's fairly easiest for us to calculate the covered area without permit data, we don't know whether the space is heated, cooled, or whatever. We don't know how much of it is garage, those sort of things. So consistent with the way it's been defined in the past, it's 14% larger.
And so with what you're going to try to propose on Thursday, does that bring this more in accordance with what you're proposing for?
I just said I defined floor area
Okay.
in the way I just did, so that there won't be any questions in the future what that means.
Any other discussion items at this point?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to speak to that calculation comment.
Does that apply to this particular case?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The new building is not 14% larger than the existing building. It is
14% larger than half.
Well, Mr. Jambor, the difference in size is the number that becomes the calculation. It's not a subtraction calculation. It's taking the difference between what 50% of the existing structure would be and the proposed structure, and then dividing that by the proposed structure, which actually is more than 14%. It's probably 25 or 30%.
Oh, I'm not sure I understand you, but that's okay.
I took it to be that if 50% is allowable, that he's asking for 64%.
Right.
Well,
Well, I see what you're saying. You're saying a percentage of the percentage. I got it.
yes, that's how you figure out how much too big it is.
Got you. I understand your comment now.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments at this time? I think what I'll do, just based on the conversations that have gone back and forth, I'll go ahead and make a motion, and we'll see if how the motion carries or doesn't carry. So regarding item number 201742-CO-U, that we recommend approval of the application subject to the condition that the colors of the proposed detached garage shall be similar to those contained on the primary residence. Is there anyone like to second the motion?
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded by Charles. Was that a comment? No? Oh, okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? No further discussion?
There is discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I have my hand up.
Yes, I see that, Mr. Brown. Go right ahead.
Thank you, sir. I would like to say that I have tried to consistently oppose structures of this type being erected in residential neighborhoods. I know I have been run over in the past. I think I was voted down 6-1 on Green Park Drive. I don't know why. But, that applicant hasn't built that monstrosity yet, so I guess that's okay. But I feel as though the commission should be consistent in enforcing an informal policy that we have had, that if the applicant does not appear to present his interests and answer questions, that we postpone the application until the applicant can be present. I'm not sure why we would deviate from that policy, even though it's an informal policy and not a rule, but it's a policy that we have adhered to consistently in the past. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, first of all, it's not a policy, and this is a recommendation that goes to the city council. So it either goes to the city council or it be voted down. So unless there's further discussion, it's probably time to vote. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
If you just kind of signal by raising your hand. Okay,
Aye.
Charles, thank you. And Julie? That was in favor, Julie? And Don? Was that in favor, Don?
Yes.
Okay, and Richard?
I did not raise my hand, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, understood. And Larry? I'm sorry, I could not hear you, Larry. Okay, so it's Larry is voting against. Richard, your vote is?
No.
Your vote is no. Tom?
I'll vote no.
Vote no. And it is 3 noes so far, and 3 yeses. And Gary Zaleski will vote in favor to pass this to the city council. So the vote is 4-3 to send a recommendation to the city council. All right. Item number 6, 20-1747-CO-U, consideration of a recommendation regarding conditional use permit application of section 17 of chapter 14 of Lago Vista Code of Ordinances to allow for a detached garage within a required rear yard setback at 2402 Farragut Road, Highland Lakes Estates, section 18, lot 2852A. And Roy, if you would take us through the staff presentation.
Yes, sir. This one's a bit simpler. The only relief the applicant is seeking is an encroachment into the rear yard setback. That rear yard happens to be adjacent to the side yard of a vacant lot. So it's not quite the same expectation, if you would, where you have 2 common rear property lines back to back and that you have a total of 50 feet separating buildings. In this case, one property line could have a structure within 5 feet of the property line anyway. This applicant is simply looking to duplicate that on their side of the property line.
Thank you, Roy. Any of the commissioners have questions of the staff? Tom?
And just to be clear, if it wasn't for the setback, then there would be no reason to be looking at this, right?
Sure. If this were 25 feet off that rear property line, it would have been permitted already.
Okay, all right.
Other questions? Yes, Mr. Brown?
Roy, did it come up in discussion with the applicant about why he didn't just rotate the building 25 feet and orient it straight onto that driveway instead of making that funny dog leg back there?
I had so many email exchanges with this applicant. I was kind of wore out.
I was very fortunate to visit the site, Mr. Brown, and when you're able to actually access the property and have it explained, and they probably will this evening, made a lot of sense why they didn't do that.
Well,
that'll come up in that presentation.
There was consideration of an additional building. But that building's gone now, so I'm not sure I could authoritatively speak to how we got where we are now. But I think the applicant is here.
Yeah, I think they'll make their presentation when we complete any kind of questions or discussion with the staff. Mr. Brown, did you have any other comments to Mr. Jambor?
No, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Questions of the staff? If that's the case, then we will go ahead and ask for the applicants to make their presentation.
Yes.
Hello.
Good evening. Again, we were here not too long ago, so.
Different commission.
Different commission members. The only thing we're asking this is because it would just put it 25 feet. It would put it right in the middle of the lot, and awkward space. In fact, really a waste of space. We have gardens and things like that. Nice stuff growing back there, and really just the space. It would block the view. Couldn't visit with all of our neighbors walking down the road, and we wouldn't be able to see. Plus, block the breeze that we have, and so that's the reason we want to move it back So it won't be right in the middle of the lot.
To answer your question, Mr. Brown, about the driveway with the weird dog leg, I thought when I drew it that we were going to try and put a garage door on that far end. But my husband has since convinced me that a door on the front might be a better solution with the driveway coming more straight in and not making that angle.
That's it.
Yeah, we didn't really know we were supposed to make a presentation, so that's kind of our presentation.
Thank you. I just wondered if that had been a product of your original plan to have the driveway go out onto Highland Lakes Drive. And
No.
No,
okay, thank you.
sir.
Any other questions of the applicant? No? All right, then we'll go and open the public hearing at 8:06 and see if there are any comments from the public. There were a couple items in the packet. It looks like some of the neighbors were very much in favor of their proposed. I'm not sure what the feedback is. Somebody have the Gong Show on or something? I'm not. All right. Don't seem to have any public comments, so we'll close the public hearing at 8:07. And any further discussion on this particular item? Would anyone like to make a recommendation to the city council?
I'll try. For item number 20-1747-CO-U, asking for a setback exemption, I make a motion that we recommend city council approve.
I second.
Tom, if we could, or maybe just to help amend a bit to, and I know this was discussed with the applicant, but to recommend the approval, as you said, Tom, to city council, subject to the condition that the colors of the proposed detached garage shall be similar to those contained on the primary residence.
Agreed.
That okay, Counselor? Okay. And
Yes, sir.
somebody like to second that? Seconded by Larry Hagler. All right. Time to vote. All in favor, sending this recommendation forward? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't see Julie anymore.
I
Julie?
had to turn off my camera. The bandwidth wasn't great, but yes, in favor.
Oh, okay. So it appears to be unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys
More than welcome, Julie.
and girls. And thank you, Gary, for coming out and seeing our place.
Oh, it was very nice. I didn't need lunch, but I appreciate it anyway. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank y'all. Bye.
Okay, item number 7 is 20-1743 SP-E, consideration of a special exemption application pursuant to section 11.60 of chapter 14 to allow the increase of a maximum height allowed by table A of chapter 14 from 18 feet to 24 feet 7 inches for a single family residence at 1600 Emerald Road, Emerald Bend, section 1, block H, lot 35. And if you would, Roy?
Yes, sir. I'm not sure everybody on the commission is aware, but we did get an email request from the applicant's representative to defer consideration of this application. They presented a house that wouldn't quite fit on the lot with our setback regulations. They didn't seem to be aware of that initially. I kind of warned them that I thought it might be. And they didn't think it was, but turns out I was correct. The reason it doesn't fit very well is because they have some extraordinarily deep garages indicated on their floor plan. It seems like there are a number of fairly easy corrections, but I think they instead pursued the idea of getting more property, and as a result, didn't leave themselves adequate time to make the design corrections to make it fit on this lot. So when I reminded them that, that we needed some sort of response for this meeting, that was when we got the request to defer.
So from past experience, I guess we still have to defer. We now have to have a public hearing and then continue it, potentially continue it until March. Is that what we'd have to do?
That's certainly what I'm used to doing. That, the public hearing was advertised. I think if there's somebody here that wants to speak, I think you're obligated to allow them to.
Okay.
All right then. That being said, any further questions to the staff at this point?
Now, I might add that, and I think I might have mentioned this in the staff report, assuming that they pursue an approach similar to what they've indicated, the height should go down when they make this correction. The span of the roof, if you will, is across parallel to the front of the house. So if that gets reduced by roughly 10 feet or so, the height should get proportionately reduced.
Well, I have one comment. One, I was out there today taking a look at it, and the ridgepole seems to be broken off down there near the base, but
Right.
It seems to be taped to a tree, so I think it's okay. But and then the second thing is, I'm not sure if our new members are aware, but for these height exceptions, before you can, the way the ordinance is, you have to go out there and view the ridgepole to make an analysis before you can make a vote on these height exceptions. So
Both of those are correct, and in fact, that's what prompted the owner's representative to start talking about a deferral, is when we informed them that they had problems with the ridgepole.
Okay.
I would have to say if the ridgepole is relatively close, just based on the height of the trees in that area, that from either an 18 to a 24 foot, it's going to be pretty irrelevant. So that's just my opinion. But once again, you're correct, Tom. The ridgepole looks like it's pretty sturdy duct tape, though, that's on that tree.
Yeah. Ones that have been struck by lightning.
Yeah. The any other questions or comments to the staff at this point? If not, we'll ask for the applicant presentation.
I do not see anybody here that name is familiar. The property owner's name is Bro, and I think the property owner is represented by a realtor by the name of Duffel or Druffel. I'm not sure which one of those two, if I'm not mistaken.
So there's no one available for the applicant presentation.
Yes, sir. I don't see anybody.
However, they have asked to be deferred. So I would imagine at this point, if we're correct, Aaron, we'll just open the public hearing. And opening that public hearing at 8:15. I'm not sure where the feedback's coming from, but it's very difficult to hear. All right. Anyway, we've opened the public hearing at 8:15, and there doesn't appear to be any comments. So at this point, we will.
There is.
There is?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Yes, if you would please give your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Lauren Malott, and our address is 21503 Blue Jay, and we will be directly behind this proposed house for this lot. We have been building our house for a year in Lago Vista, and we're just recently able to move in December. And we moved to Lago Vista because we loved the area and we loved the open space and the fact that there was restrictions on the height of the houses to allow for, you know, you to be able to see the beauty of the trees and a lake and have open space. And as a mom of 2 boys with another one on the way, we really want to protect our privacy as well as, you know, the view that we do have and the open space that we do have. And we feel that with this building being permitted to be higher than what is normally accepted, it's going to invade on that and also take away from the feel of the neighborhood in general. So we're opposed to this happening. We think that if, you know, everybody wants a view, and we are sure that they probably want a view of the lake, but we would ask them to reconsider. We built our house on the floodplain as well, and we knew that, you know, there was a height restriction, and we wanted to follow that because if we were to build our house up, we would be impeding on everybody else. So we would just ask them to reconsider the height. That's all I really have to say on that, but I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen.
Thank you very much, Lauren.
Thank you.
So at this point, if there's no other comments, we're going to continue the public hearing and leave this open. And this would, when would this take place, Roy? In March? A regular March?
That's what they requested, sir. You know, Aaron and I will get together and see how we have to list this, but the public hearing, when you continue them, as long as you continue it to a date specific, we can notice it that way.
Understood. Tom, I saw you had a comment.
You're muted.
Tom's muted.
All right, since we did have a public comment, I just wanted to respond, give at least my perspective only to Lauren. I was out there today looking at it, and it's very flat. So I'm of the opinion that one, there's no lake views in that area because of the tree line, and two, any house built by right is going to be, you know, impact, you know, whatever open space there might be. So we're out there to assess impacts on views and so forth. So, and I just don't see any significant impact on any views because of the flat nature of that area. So that's just my opinion going in when we take this up in March.
And Lauren, thanks for your participation. And you might make a note as to when this will be heard again. that this
Yeah.
will continue?
Yes, thank you, I will.
Thank you. Aaron and Roy, so are we, you'll determine when this will hit the agenda again, whether February or in March?
Yes, sir. And we'll discuss whether it's appropriate to list it on the agenda just to carry it over or not. That's a stylistic thing.
Understood.
I will defer to Aaron's judgment in that regard.
All right.
In this particular situation, since you've opened the public hearing, and if there is the appetite to continue that public hearing until, Roy, correct me if I'm wrong, they asked for March.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
a recommendation or, sorry, a motion would be, if you're of the mind, to continue the public hearing until the regularly scheduled meeting to occur in March.
Right.
That way we will do is just put it back on the agenda in March, and you'll go back into your public hearing and then complete the rest of your process.
Thank you very much, Aaron. And thanks again for your comments, Lauren.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to item number 8, and that is discussion and consideration of a recommendation regarding potential
Mr. Chairman.
amendment. Yes.
I'm sorry. I do think we want to have a motion to continue this item until that date. I think for the record.
Oh. Well, we'll make a recommendation that item number 7, which was 201743-SP-E, be continued at a future date. How's that?
Continue to March.
To the regularly scheduled meeting in March.
The regularly scheduled meeting in March. Is there a second? Seconded by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Appears to be unanimous.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Aaron, will that suffice?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. All right, then we will move on to item number 6, discussion and consideration of a recommendation regarding potential amendment to section 2.10 of and 5 of chapter 14 of the Lago Vista Code of Ordinances to clarify exemptions from setback requirements. And if you would, Roy.
Yes, sir. This is a byproduct of a discussion that happened at a Board of Adjustment meeting when, as most of you are aware, our Code of Ordinances has lots and lots and lots of inconsistencies and inconsistent language here and outright conflicts in other places, as well as a bunch of ambiguities. There is general guidance in this ordinance, as well as every other one that I've ever worked with, that establishes very clearly that notwithstanding where these inconsistencies exist, that the most stringent requirement is that the one that the staff is supposed to impose, and that if anybody desires relief from that, that they are to seek the appropriate remedies. Unfortunately, the Board of Adjustments didn't necessarily agree. Their comment is that there are some exemptions to setbacks in Chapter 3 in the building regulations, and they didn't see those as either conflicts or inconsistencies. And as a result, the staff is responding to correct that so that, notwithstanding who might be correct, there's absolutely no question if we adopt these amendments. The particular inconsistencies that they were brought to our attention had to do with exemptions for two elements in Chapter 3 for setbacks that the staff didn't really object to. It was their lack of qualifications that we objected to. For example, they exempted retaining walls, and that's fine, except for the fact that there was no qualifications there. In other words, somebody could build a wall that wouldn't otherwise be allowed, and then could backfill some dirt against it, a minimal amount, and say, well, it's not a screening wall anymore, it's a retaining wall because it has dirt on one side of it. The staff added definitions, say, okay, that's fine, we'll exempt it, but only if it's backfilled within a few inches of the top of the wall. Same thing about decks. They were of the opinion that you could have a deck in a rear yard, which particularly on a property adjacent to the golf course, as you're aware, you can't have a wood fence in the rear yard setback of a golf course. But their opinion that's any height whatsoever, but their opinion was you could have an infinitely tall wood deck back there. The staff had no problem with exempting wood decks. However, the normal exemption for that is a wood deck that's very close to the ground and not very tall. We picked 30 inches as an appropriate limitation because anything 30 inches or taller has to have a guardrail. So and that obviously increases the height, and that could be a solid wall and look like a fence as well. So if it's going to be exempt from the setback and not be required to obtain a variance, we said that wood deck had to be within 30 inches of grade at the maximum. So anyway, what you have is in front of you is the amendments to Chapter 14. We added those two exemptions that were previously in Chapter 3, but with qualifications. And in Chapter 3, we intend to just simply remove them and refer to Chapter 14, and that being the place where setbacks are defined and should be defined. And by the way, that's not the only place in Chapter 3 they talk about setbacks. There's some more sections, but those I think deal with mobile home subdivisions, which I don't think we have any of those here, so I wasn't quite as concerned with those.
Thanks, Roy. And before we move into other discussion, I'd like to just kind of take things in order. It appears I'd like to open the public hearing at 8:28, and I do not believe that there's any public that is present. So we'll just see if anybody chooses to respond to the opening of the public hearing. And it doesn't appear that they have. So at 8:29, we're going to close the public hearing and we can move on to discussion.
I have an objection to using grade as a determining factor. There's a lot of houses out here that are in the floodplain. The result is that the houses have to be built up so that their foundation is a foot above the floodplain. And if they go to put a deck in where you can step out of the back onto the deck, that deck has to be 7 or 8 feet, maybe even taller than that, just to be out of the floodplain.
We're not prohibiting a deck. We're just prohibiting a deck in a required setback. Our opinion is if that deck is 7 or 8 feet tall, it's definitely a structure. It's not invisible.
Absolutely.
So, and structures are prohibited in setbacks absent a variance. We're not prohibiting the deck. We're just saying it needs to comply with the setback requirements.
And what are those that violate the floodplain?
Same thing. We have lots of them that are much taller than that. They're just not allowed in the rear yard setback where structures are prohibited absent a variance.
Does that help clarify, Charles?
No.
No.
Well, yeah, I mean, once again, like the application that was in front of you tonight with the accessory building that encroaches in the setback, you have to approve that because, you know, what you have is a standard. It's not that you're trying to prohibit it, but you want to look and see if that causes somebody a problem or not. You know, just like that accessory building, that's most definitely a structure. And so is a deck that's 8 feet tall, whether it's in the floodplain or not.
Other discussion?
Roy, if I understand what you're trying to say is, and maybe hopefully this will help Mr. Solomon. It's you're only clarifying that once you get above that 30-inch threshold, it makes very clear that you have to go through the variance process.
Well, or simply recognize the setbacks.
Or comply with the setbacks. That's the only functional difference.
You know, most lots that are in the floodplain are extremely deep. Okay, we have tons of decks on the back of houses in the floodplain. I don't think any of them are scaring the rear yard setback.
Well, I have two neighbors that they are 7 feet into the floodplain. The floodplain, their house is 7 feet above the floodplain, and their decks are at the level of their foundation. They're not on the ground.
Are either of those decks in the rear yard setback?
One of them is, I think. I don't know. They're on the golf course, so they went through some process for that.
And that's what we would ask is, you know, it seems to be bizarre to us to say that you can't have a 6-foot fence in the rear yard setback of the golf course, but you can have a 20-foot deck. That's without approval.
Are you assuming that the deck is separate from the house?
Doesn't matter either way. The idea is to keep a tall structure that is not transparent a certain distance away from the property line adjacent to a golf course. Whether that's a wood fence that's 6 feet tall or a deck that's much taller, you know, it's the same visual barrier that the ordinance intends to restrict without special approval. To exempt one that's much taller, you know, because it's a deck rather than a fence, seems strange.
Aren't fences allowed to be built on the property line along the golf course?
4 foot.
Not a wood fence, no, not a screening fence.
Not a solid fence.
A solid fence cannot be in the rear yard setback.
That's what
right, but it can be made of wood.
I was getting confused because I just thought fences, if you want to put in a rear fence.
Actually, let me correct you, sir. The only fence that's allowed in the rear yard setback of a golf course, I'm pretty sure is ornamental wrought iron.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that. It was
No,
just,
that's not correct.
I thought you were saying that those fences had to honor the setback, and I thought they were allowed on the property line for the golf course specifically.
Wrought iron fences only, I'm pretty sure, is what's the only thing that's allowed.
That's a structure, isn't it? That's still a structure.
I understand. It's a structure that you can see through.
Correct. Okay, I just clearing that up.
Might want to check that because there's lots of regular wooden fences along the golf course.
Including mine.
Yeah. They were either permitted improperly or not permitted.
No, they cannot be solid.
I know that.
Okay.
So where would you like to go from here, Roy?
Well, we're asking for a recommendation, whether you want to forward a favorable recommendation to City Council or not on this amendment. We certainly don't want to leave it where chapter 14 says one thing and chapter 3 says another.
Absolutely. Well, it
And-
looks like you put in a lot of time on it.
And they're only making the recommendation about chapter 14. The chapter 3 is just for reference, right?
Like I said, we added the exceptions in 14. There were no exceptions in there previously.
Yeah, where you put in what, or structure improvements such as?
Well, it's the last part before you hit the chapter 3 amendment, the F.
Yes.
The following structures are exempt.
Right.
Right. Those two weren't in there before.
Gotcha.
There were no structures that were exempt.
So I'm guessing
There were examples in the definition.
Anyone like to make a recommendation to recommend or make a motion to recommend?
Oh,
Go ahead, Tom.
well. I make a motion that planning and zoning recommend city council approve agenda item 8, the ordinance language, the edited ordinance language for clarification of setback exemptions. Right?
Is that clear enough, Aaron?
Yes, sir.
I'll go ahead and second. All in favor of the recommendation, signify by raising your hand. Looks unanimous.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Well, that was pretty easy. The next item, of course, is the future agenda items. And if anybody'd like to put some things out there, but we're going to be talking about that again in just a couple days. Go ahead, Tom.
I would. We've got this difficult case coming up Thursday over on Buffalo Drive.
Yep.
And I don't want to talk about it specifically, but there's a number of problems with that associated with how we even got to that situation. And part of it is we seem to not have enough enforcement. So it sounds like we need to discuss what some of these code violations for these types of situations, because right now it's not much more than a slap on the wrist, and need to come up with something to have serious consequences. This type of situation doesn't come up again in situations like it, or even close to like it.
I agree, Tom. I mean, the city, I don't know what authority we have. Maybe Aaron can help us with that. But what authority we actually have, other than the city council really needs to do something or to really put some teeth into some of these unscrupulous contractors. And, that one in particular, this guy's kind of stuck because the contractor he picked, but after all, this man over there in Buffalo, the owner, he's a contractor.
He participated with the contractor that built the house.
Understood.
He is as much at fault in this as the homeowner is as much at fault as the contractor.
Yep.
So,
but once I'm sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I believe, so Roy and I have been discussing this issue, the issue of houses that are being built that don't match the drawings that are submitted to us as far as height, or aren't permitted at all. They built it without a permit, and we're not able to catch it immediately. And I think that there are kind of two things that we're trying to do at this point. I want to bring more of that information back to you because this is, it's not on the agenda, so we can't talk in detail. If you want, we can have a future agenda item to kind of discuss zoning violations, how the staff is addressing those things, what's already in our existing regs as far as enforcement. If there are recommendations that you want to make to the city council on either stiffening or changing the approach, then you can do that. So that we could set that up as a future agenda item, but that way we can kind of brief you more fully on how at least staff is thinking about adjustments within our process to try to avoid this.
Would we be able to do that next meeting, February?
In February, yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's please do that.
And I'll just throw in, just so you'll be aware of the discussions we've been having internally on the staff, which is simply to add the requirement to Chapter 3 that, like form surveys, that's something you have to get certified on the front end and make it part of the required inspections. But that's not a zoning chapter amendment. That's an amendment to Chapter 3.
Yeah.
Of the building regulation.
Right.
Because that particular house blocks the view of several people because of its height.
So if that's your desire, commission, we can bring more information back to you at a future agenda item, kind of tell you where we are, what we're doing for you. That's in the P&Z realm, and then what's going to happen for building and standards. And then ultimately kind of the recommendations that would be taken forward to city council for them to approve either ordinance amendments or hopefully we can resolve this internally. But if we need to change some things, we can, we want to get a handle on it as well.
Thank you.
Roy's new staff should also be able to help us with that too. So.
Any other future agenda items, or you think we got our hands full? Well,
let me throw this out there, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
one
sir.
other possible thing. I have offered up to Board of Adjustment a training session. I had one training session, but of course we had 3 members that switched over, that got replaced or switched out with this latest change in boards and commissions. And so there's another need to have another kind of training session that goes over processes. I think that there are some issues that continue to persist that crossover between the board and the commission as far as it's Chapter 14. If there's an appetite for a training that would involve this group, I'm happy to include you in the invitation so that you can understand kind of what the P&Z has authority over, what Board of Adjustment has authority over, what the different standards are for reviewing those types of applications, because they are very different. A couple of our BOA members have been a little confused about what the standards are that apply. I think it would be beneficial for this particular group to understand the challenges that the board has been facing of late with some applications that come before them, so that you see why there might be some changes that you guys might want to recommend as far as changes to the code. Very similar to the ordinance change that you considered tonight. And then also we have a couple new members who may or may not have a lot of familiarity with what y'all consider and what's applicable as far as your legal standards. And so I would set it up as an executive session where you could quiz me, or we could have a legal discussion about how that functions. And that way you'd have a little more freedom to kind of ask freely ask questions without any concerns that the public doesn't see any of your knowledge if you have it. Most of you guys are really on top of things, but I always want to make sure that you're well prepared for what you're considering, and more importantly in this case, I want you to see the struggle that some of our Board of Adjustment members have been having of late, because there are some serious issues that they've had to tackle lately.
I think it'd be beneficial.
And it wouldn't be unless y'all wanted to make it mandatory, you wouldn't have to. It could be a all or partial or all participation on a voluntary basis. I think the Board of Adjustment, that group, really all of them intend to participate, but if I just want to make sure that y'all have everything you need to do what you need to do, and that if you want to recommend some changes for the regs that really apply to the Board of Adjustment, that y'all are able to do that.
Well, and along those same lines, Aaron, the staff would like to bring it to your attention that the fence ordinance, even though we've discussed it in the past, is a priority. Quite frankly, almost every section of the fence ordinance, from one chapter or paragraph to the next, says something completely different, including the ones we were just talking about. And that just needs to be cleaned up, because once again, there seems to be a dissatisfaction with the simple solution that we will enforce the most stringent one of the requirements. And we've got some real problem situations that will result otherwise.
Folks are getting very creative these days.
Yep. And it does, literally. I mean, every section says something inconsistent with the previous section.
And I'm guessing that on this Buffalo Drive issue, whatever we decide Thursday, the other side's going to be appealing, and Board of Adjustments will probably see that too. So they may need to be well schooled in what we do.
Well, right, but that's a de novo hearing where that's not a variance per se.
Correct.
So that's just in case you don't understand, there's a section in the ordinance that creates some standards for approving a variance on the part of the Board of Adjustments, and those border on being somewhere between extremely difficult and impossible to meet those standards. And I think that's part of the problem that they're having is, asking you guys to look at some of that language. That won't apply to them, an appeal of a special exception approval or denial, either one. That won't be an issue there. This is a separate thing they're wrestling with.
Understand.
The other thing that's been raised, Mr. Chairman, is a question by the liaison to the Board of Adjustment, the council liaison Board of Adjustment, is regarding what items are proper for Board of Adjustment consideration versus what is proper for P&Z consideration. And so I want to have a discussion with you about where those lines are drawn. And really this comes into play with the height exception, special exceptions for height, as that language or that process is referenced in the statute versus what's in our ordinances. So I think it would be very beneficial for you guys to hear that that legal advice, because it may change what items you hear on a regular basis.
Specifically to height?
Mm-hmm. Height
Okay.
acceptance. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't want to get too far afield of what we can talk about tonight, but I definitely think that's going to be an important discussion for you guys to be part of.
Very good. Well, any other future agenda items that this group is proposing? If not, it's been just a real jam-packed, fun-filled evening. And David, did you want to do the benediction or?
No, I just wanted to state thank you for meeting tonight. One of the reasons why you met tonight is to keep your meeting from being too long on Thursday. Last Thursday, we had a council meeting and it went to 1 o'clock in the morning, which I'm not in favor of. So I did not want you all to experience that type of long commission meeting where you're there till 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So that's why you have 2 meetings this week.
Yeah, but David, that's not fair. I mean, you get overtime pay and we don't.
What kind of overtime pay do I get?
The camaraderie.
Oh, okay.
The bonding. The pressing the flesh.
How many attaboys do you want, Dave?
Yeah, right. Okay.
Thank you, Dave. Anything else, David? Thanks again.
That's it, sir.
All right. Then it is 8:52 this evening, and we are now adjourned. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night, all.